Well, I have the pleasure of introducing Tim Sales. I've met him many, many years ago, and at the time it was a generic event, and I learned more from him over the years that followed than anyone else I could say that were in my upline in my other company. And one day, I don't know if I can call this luck, but I've had the pleasure of being able to work with Tim, and that's when everything started to change for me. I started to have success, and he definitely is the guy responsible for a lot of the greatness in this industry, and we have the pleasure to have him here as our master distributor. And today what we're going to talk about is the MLM objection. And so pay close attention, notes. I hope that you have paper handy, a pen, because there's going to be a lot of great information here to write down and memorize. You got to learn how to do, answer this objection. This is probably one of the, I would say, toughest objection, because you can have the best company, the best product, compensation plan. You have everything lined up. But if people don't see themselves doing it, then you won't have much success with this. So you need to be able to handle that objection, so this way people can see themselves doing it, and then everything else, company, product, is going to be lined up to really help your prospects. So, Tim, I would like to ask you a question here is, what are your thoughts on this specific objection? What can you bring here to help people understand this objection?
Well, thank you both very, very much. To answer that question, unfortunately, it has been so long since I've been in the industry, or out of the industry. For those of you that don't know, I came into this industry in 1989, and I came in without any objection to the industry because I had never heard of the industry. And, of course, I've been around the objection. I've heard the objection thousands and thousands of times. And today I sit in a situation to where I honestly can't even fathom the objection because my life has been just so incredibly blessed with the industry. I had the fun activity of I was traveling from right around Tampa, Florida, going across the state of Florida with a gentleman that some of you probably know. His name is Steve Schwartz. And we were traveling across to pick up a car that I had purchased on the other coast. And I don't get out much is kind of the funny phenomenon, because I work from home. If I want to go to a movie, I typically go to a matinee. If I want to play a game of golf, I typically go on a Tuesday at around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And so I don't get out much, but this particular time that I could pick up the car had me leaving, traveling across, and I was sitting in traffic, unbelievable traffic at that, and I was looking to my left and to my right, and I was looking at the misery in everyone's face. And I looked over at Steve, and I said, are these the people who are objecting to network marketing? I can't imagine 2 days sitting in traffic like this, and this is everyone's life. I can't even fathom this thing. What are they objecting to? There must be some kind of boogeyman or something that isn't real. You know, it's that ghost that's underneath your bed when you're a kid. It's not real. They put up a block, or they put up an image of something that is fallacy. And the reason that I say this is that if anyone just looks around and weighs the options that are available to them in the workplace, you've got an option of working in a traditional type of an employment scenario, right? And so that scenario, to me, is nowhere near network marketing. All right, so let me just play this out as I understand it. I have been in the job market before I went into the military, and so it was one of those scenarios where I go and I ask, really beg to go to work. And then that person pays me some sort of a salary based upon what I might have gotten before or their interpretation of what my value is. And so, you know, I punch the clock when I go in, I work all day long, and I punch the clock going out. And I don't believe that anybody thinks or even fathoms that they can ever have, you know, like a dreamful life in that scenario, unless it's a job that you just absolutely adore. Normally a person who adores the job that they do are that kind of a person who enjoys whatever they do. I was that guy. I was changing tires at Firestone, and I loved anything that I did. In other words, it was just fun to me. So that's one scenario. And you might have a little bit of a better job, or the person that you're talking to has a little bit better job than changing tires. But nonetheless, when you pay your taxes and then you expense the things out for, you know, your living expenses, your rent, and so forth, it doesn't leave you any kind of a lifestyle, and you're kind of stuck to that type of a life. And then the second option is you go into some sort of a traditional business ownership. And traditional meaning that a professional, a doctor, an attorney, chiropractor, that sort of a thing, you own your own business, but what you've basically done is that you've built the entire business around yourself. And so if you're not cracking backs or cleaning teeth or helping someone in some sort of a way, like an attorney or a doctor, then you're not really getting paid. You might be able to get $100, $200, $300 an hour for that, but you don't get paid unless you're doing that. And if you go away on some sort of an extended type of a vacation, and I'm talking 2, 3, 4 weeks, then a lot of time your client base will leave you. Certain parts of them will, a number of them will leave you. And so hopefully what you're doing there is that over 10, 20 years you build up a clientele that you somehow try to convince some other professional to buy your customer base. And that's the dream there. And it is not, when I compare that to network marketing, it is very difficult for me to say, oh, I would choose that one, because I'm probably going to go to school for 8 to 12 years, and I'm going to have a big bill. All right, the student loans are astronomical in that type of a scenario, and so I will probably work half my career just to try to pay that back. So then you look at the other options of owning your own business, which will logically lead to probably the most successful of all types of business ownership, which is franchising. And if you run down the list of franchises, and I have, because I like to compare and see what's going on out there, you can get a McDonald's. I think everybody knows that one, and that's $1 million. And if you really wanted to serve that sort of a product to consumers, knowing that it is not healthy, it's going to harm them, a Subway sandwich, you've got $100,000 to pay for that, and you got to understand what you're paying for that. You're paying the fee, and the fee is the right to receive the training, all right, and use the identity of that franchise. And so for $100,000, you get the right to use the Subway identity, and then they will train you on how to set up your business. You still got to get your business. In other words, you still have to rent the space and then hire the employees. Okay, so anytime somebody says, well, I don't like the recruiting aspect of network marketing. And I say, well, if you're not recruiting to get people into your business, then you will not be successful also in any kind of a franchise or any other kind of business ownership, because the process is the same. You're going to have to find people to help you with your business. And and just some of the other franchise fees. If you wanted to get a Cold Stone, it's $292,000. A GNC, $160,000. If you want to clean houses, you can get Mary Maid franchise for $55,000. Massage Envy for $343,000. And again, you have to understand what that franchise fee is. This is the part that startles me and confuses me. And that is that franchise fee is for the right to have that identity and to receive training. All the other expenses you're going to have to bear. So any license that you have to get, any types of a lease on a building, all of those things. Now, I want you to think of a franchise, any one of them that you've ever seen. And I want you to just picture it in Google Maps where you draw a circle that is a 15 to 20-minute drive. All right, so drive time, 15 to 20 minutes. I want you to take a circle around the spot where you want to have your franchise. That is where your customers are going to come from. And that's it. You'll have an occasional tourist who drives through, but by and large, your customer base is going to come from a 15 to 20-minute drive. Because why else would they come to your location? Right? Okay, so the most that you could ever service is a 15 to 20-minute drive, a radius around your franchise area or your business area. The reason I'm so close to this one is because when I made my money, and I retired in 1996, so I joined the business in 1989 and I retired in 1996. And after a couple of years, I had a whole lot of money. I could have bought several franchises, and I was planning on doing that in just kind of a passive thing. So I would buy the franchise, I'd pay the fee, I'd go through the training, and then I would hire a manager of sorts to manage the franchise. And then I would receive the money. And so I went in and I figured out exactly how much that it would take. But there's one part that I could never overcome, and the reason that I never pulled the trigger and actually purchased a franchise is because of that geographic limitation. At one time, I remember looking at a franchise on the beach, and this was in Florida, on the west coast of Florida, and so it fronts up to the Gulf of Mexico. And if you'll remember, there was a BP oil spill, and there was black tar that was washing up onto the beach, and so the oil would basically harden and turn into a rubbery type of a tar that would roll up onto the beach. And the beach traffic, nobody wanted to go to the beach and go swimming in the tar. And so the traffic died down to almost nothing. Well, how many months do you think that a franchise owner who has his franchise on the beach, how many months do you think that he can handle that before he has to file bankruptcy? All right, so in a geographic limitation, what you've got there is that you are completely vulnerable. Right? You're vulnerable to anything that occurs in that area. And so if there's a hurricane, if there's a flood, if there's tar rolling up on the beach or anything else, so it's not just that you circle a 15 to 20-minute radius around your franchise. You also have that there can be something that go wrong. And, I mean, who's going to cover that? No one's going to cover that. So the reason I bring these things up to you is that I know the objections in network marketing. The objections are, number one, is finding a company that's going to go long term. But you know what? There's not a single business in the world that doesn't have that issue. Just because you buy a McDonald's franchise doesn't mean that's going to be successful. All right? It's a little bit of a higher statistic. In other words, the options of success in a franchise are a little tiny bit higher than a traditional business owner has. But it's still, there is the limitations of that. So the one objection to network marketing is finding a company going long term. Well, if you're on this call, you're an Ariix or seriously considering Ariix, and so that issue has pretty much been handled for you. The second objection to network marketing is you have to get customers. Well, what business don't you have to get customers in? Anybody want to let me in on that secret? because the very act of business is serving a customer with a product or a service. And so just because you have one doesn't mean that you have customers. Just because you have a product doesn't mean you have customers. Just because you put a franchise in a location does not mean that customers are going to come to you. You have to then go out and reach, right? So the whole idea behind getting a business inside of a city is that you get a little bit of foot traffic, all right? So you hope you get that real estate spot right in the right one where you've got foot traffic coming by. But that normally is not enough. You're going to have to go out and reach out for the customer. You run ads, you do radio spots, you offer specials, you do whatever you can to get customers to come in. And so there is no business that I'm aware of that you don't have to get customers. And so that's objection number 2, but you have that with every business in the world. Objection number 3 is that you have to recruit people. Or in traditional business, you hire them. All right, so let's just weigh the differences between recruiting someone versus hiring someone. Anyone who is on this call who has hired employees before, you know and I know that I don't need to say anything more. You're already chuckling over there. Because if you've ever had the luxury of hiring employees, you know, number one is that it's very, very tough because they come in and they hand you a resume. And that resume is full of their best light. They put themselves in the very best light that they possibly can. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, it's a honeymoon time frame. They'll do anything for you. And then, a little tiny thing goes a little bit wrong. They're 10 minutes later, so they come in and they apologize. And you say it's okay. And the next day it's okay. And then the day after that, they come in about 15 minutes late. Or then they call in and they have some reason that's very, very important and they can't come in that day. Well, you needed them that day. And this goes on and on and on. And if you let them go, then you stand a risk of being sued by them. All right? In other words, that is not a glorious event over there in the hiring of employees. And I don't know a business that you don't have to hire employees in. If it is, it's a very tiny one. And it's not going to really blossom into what people dream of building a business, being able to walk away from it, having the financial resources to enjoy their life. All right, so given the option, okay, so what I just laid out to you is a whole list of options other than network marketing. And then I told you all the objections, all the problems of network marketing, and I know them very, very well. I would always prefer to recruit people instead of hiring employees. All right? And here's the primary reason why. Is because when they come to you, they're not handing you a resume showing you their best light. And so what you talk to when you get them on the phone is who they really are. And do you know how many of those people you would have actually hired and not known it? And you might pay them $2,000, $3,000 a month for 3 or 4 or 5 months before you finally have to let them go. And then you're going to have to pay unemployment insurance, and you're going to have to pay all kinds of additional things with that. Fed, FICA, all of the additional expenses, and your business is pouring out for those people. And so when I get a prospect on the phone, and they're not great, they're not so nice to me, I always think, you know what, I might have made a mistake and hired that guy if I'd have been looking for an employee. And so given the options of doing network marketing as a business versus an employment, me working for somebody else, I'll always choose network marketing. Buying a franchise, paying the fee for the right to use the identity and to get trained, I will always choose network marketing. And when I look at the objections of getting customers, I got to get them anywhere. And so the only thing that's left is recruiting and finding other people to be in business with me. And I will always prefer that. And so as bad as it ever gets is the greatest that I could ever imagine. And so this talk, this whole conversation this morning is about handling the MLM objection. And I told you that I find it hard to handle the objection sometimes today because I'm so spoiled. I'm so spoiled because I've already come over that hurdle. I've already come over that, wait a minute, there isn't anything better. I'm not saying it's the only thing in existence. I'm saying that for me and for the average person, and even for the people who are used to making $250,000, $500,000, $1 million a year, this is still the very, very best option. And so with that, knowing that I have a very, very difficult time overcoming it, I'll tell you how I normally handle this objection. Number one is that I'm not going to go off of anything that Stefan and Arlene haven't already taught you. All right? In other words, what I taught them how to handle this objection is that I have to first humble myself down, forget all that I know about how fabulous this industry is, how fabulous Ariix is, what a rare occasion that you have, and I listen all the way through the objection. All right? So I have to determine right up front exactly what is it that this person is objecting to. And so I listen all the way through, whatever they're saying. And if they've got some baggage, that's okay. All right? So if you've ever dated anybody in a relationship and they came from a relationship previously, then they're normally toting some baggage. And so, okay, all right, it's all right. That doesn't make them bad. And they're just toting some baggage. All right? So I listen all the way through. And then I make sure that I really get the right objection. Because just because somebody says, is it one of those pyramid schemes, doesn't mean that I really understand what they're objecting to. And so I've got to listen through and confirm that what their objection is exactly what I'm about to say. Because the last thing that, going to answer. Because the last thing that you want to do is to go and handle the objection that they don't have. And so that's the reason that you have to confirm what that objection actually is. And then I want to validate that person. All right, I'm not necessarily validating the objection, but I'm validating that person, and I'm letting them know that that they're free to talk and explain to me what their concerns are. Because as long as they have an objection, all right, it's normally due to lack of understanding, but if they have an objection, then they basically got a block. They've got something that is prohibiting them from moving forward. And so normally it takes understanding, it takes explanation, it takes them opening up, and a lot of times a person can't really open up until they're given the right to speak their mind. And so I'll listen all the way through there, and I'll validate whatever their objection actually is. And then after I get done with that is that I want to handle that objection. But kind of the skill of this really comes down to you not actually handling it. It is the skill of you facilitating handling it. And what I mean by that is that you ask them questions so that they handle it themselves. And that came from years of trying to give them the right answer. And very rarely can you come up with the right answer. The more that you learn, the more you study this industry, the more that you're on conference calls like this, and that you gain a better understanding of this industry, it means that you're going to be able to have the knowledge in your head so that you can ask the appropriate questions that cause the prospect to step over that objection on their own. Okay, so let me give you an example of how that might work. You just heard this conversation, and so you could, when somebody is ranting about not wanting to recruit or something, you can say, well, what are you comparing it to? Are you looking at some other kind of business that you're looking to work? Are you planning on hiring employees? How do you see hiring employees compared to recruiting? And the person says, yeah, well, I don't have to talk to my friends and blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, all right, I understand that. And so, how are you planning on hiring employees? And they say, well, running ads in the newspaper. Okay, good. Well, why don't you run ads in the newspaper to recruit? Because really, is there a whole lot of difference between recruiting for a network marketing company and hiring employees? Well, yeah, I would be paying them to come to work for me. Oh, and you think that's nice? So you're going to pay them, $2,000, $3,000 a month to test them out? Well, I'd much rather just pay an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month in advertising to recruit somebody who's going to then go to work and build their own business. How do you see that differently? So you're basically using the knowledge that you gained on this conference call to be able to then facilitate helping that person gain an understanding that the boogeyman of network marketing isn't Snow Gnarly, but the boogeyman of hiring employees can be quite gnarly. So that would be an example of how to facilitate helping someone pass their own objection. And as some of you have heard me talk about before, I learned something very, very valuable in this area, and that is that oftentimes I was handling an objection that wasn't really the objection. And so you have to listen very, very closely while that person is telling you what their objection is, because very often you'll find that the real objection is they don't feel as though they can do it. And so in your handling of an objection, what I always try to do is talk to them about training. Talk to them about how, I'm going to walk them through step by step, train them how to do it, because I'd not, if somebody gives me the objection of my wife doesn't want me to do it, I can guarantee you that person is sitting on an objection called I can't do it. Can't meaning not that his wife won't let him. Can't is that he doesn't have the confidence that if he went to work, he would be able to do the business. Because I assure you, if he brings in a $100,000 a month check, his wife will be absolutely fine with him doing it. I've never, ever, ever had that objection be actually real. Because as soon as I get into the specifics of the training, how, step by step and those sorts of things, then that objection with the spouse goes away. Or invite the wife. If you're really talking to the wife via the husband, in other words, the husband saying, my wife doesn't want me to do it, well, then obviously you need to be talking to the wife. Because if she's restraining it, then she doesn't think her husband can do it, or something like that. So you'd want to involve the wife in that. So the point that I'm making here is that I'm not going, I don't teach and I don't do anything that I haven't already taught to Stefan and Arlene. And so I know that they have been working through the objection handling remedy, and I can assure you that when you execute that correctly, it works. And now, hopefully, with this little bit of an extra information that I've given you here about how to compare network marketing to any other business that your prospect might be looking at, then hopefully that'll help you. If I can open the lines up, I don't know if the volume of people is going to make it too messy, too loud, too crazy, but I'd love to hear from you, hear any specifics that you have going on that I might be able to help you with. Arlene, can you help me open it?
Yes, I'll go ahead and open it, and if it's too noisy, then we'll see if we have another way of doing this. So here we go. So if you guys would please mute your phones, hit the mute button, or however you mute your phones, it would be very much appreciated. But we'd also like to have any questions or comments too. Stefan, if you have any that you'd like to help us with.
Yes. Well, that's the time for you guys. You have the chance to speak with Tim and get his feedback on this objection. Has anyone ever been faced, with this objection? You've been on the phone or you've been talking to family members, and this objection comes up. They just don't see themselves doing it or whatever. We would love to hear from you. If you have questions, that's the right time to ask.
Stefan and Tim and Arlene, this is Patty in Boston. I have a question for you.
Patty.
Can you talk a little bit more about validating the person? Because sometimes it's difficult to determine whether I'm agreeing with them or validating them.
Okay. Give me an example that you've received, an objection that you've received, and then how you might have validated.
Right. Well, someone might say to me, I don't have the time. And so I'm always stumped if I hear something like that, whether or not to say, well, okay, I understand that, or really, you don't have the time? I'm not real sure. What is it actually, what are the words that you use to validate someone? Because I'm afraid if I say, well, okay, I understand that you don't have the time, then I'm at a brick wall. I've cut myself off. But my initial response to validating someone is that it's got to be something different than that.
Right. All right. This is a great one, Patty. I really appreciate that question. Right there is an example of validating the person, not validating the objection. Right? No, it's just the way you heard me just say that. Now, I'll continue on. I'll give you some more examples, but I wanted you to know that you felt validated that you were heard. Right? So if someone talks to me and they say, I don't have the time, and I say, tell me more about that. Right? So then what's the person going to do? They'll say, well, I've got the kids, I've got my job, I've got this, and I got that, and so forth, right? And so by me merely saying, tell me more about that, that's validating it, right? But sometimes I don't want them to, make it worse, but when the person is telling me about it, I get inside a little bit. I get to learn a little bit more about them and what's going on. And when they're going all the way through all of the kids and the sports and the this and the this and this, and then I just say, wow, you are really, really busy. When do you see that changing?
Okay.
Right?
I get you.
And you've probably heard the way that I handle this when I then carve it off and I say, okay, I want you to picture this. And let's just say, Patty, I'm going to just use you as an example. All right, Patty, you're busy. Okay, so let's just break it into 3 different slots. There's the time you sleep. You can't really mess with that. There's the time that you work, and you can't really mess with that because you have an 8-hour work day. And then, so you have 8 additional hours. And it's in that 8 hours that if you do effectively in your part-time basis the business that I'm talking about, then you're going to be able to gain an additional 8 hours because you won't have to go to work. And so if you don't figure out a solution on how to make more time, then it's never going to change. You're going to end up in your 50s and 60s, and then you're going to have to face this again. You're going to still have the same issue, but your kids are going to be off and gone. And so I would like to work out with you a way for you and I to use that 8 hours that is not sleep and is not work to work a part-time business so that you can gain an additional 8 hours. So that would be the way that I would handle that objection.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Patty, did you feel validated in there?
Yeah, I did. It's amazing. Now I get it. I know I've been struggling with it for a long time, but now I think I get it now. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Other objections that you're getting, or any comments or thoughts on any of this that I've talked about?
Tim.
Yes.
Hello, Tim. This is Jonathan in Sherbrooke, Canada.
Hello, Jonathan.
Yes, Tim, I have a question for you. I often run into people that are involved into corporate America. So they have high positions as far, as perhaps management or dealing with, dignitaries, people like that. And they often tell me, well, I can't really get involved into MLM because it has a bad reputation. But, sometimes I feel that, they might have an interest. They like the structure, but they feel that there's a bad reputation. What do you say to these people? How do you reply to them?
Okay, this is a really good one, Jonathan, and it's very important how you respond to this, okay? Because that person has the image issue, right? So they feel as though that they're somehow going to be reduced in status or reputation by being in network marketing. And so this one is not in Professional Inviter. This is just the way that I handle this. What I do is that I ask them. I say, hey, it's a good point that you bring up, and I would just like your opinion of something, like you, not other people and the reputations and all of that stuff. But I would just like for you to explain to me what you feel as though statusizes a good business. Okay, so if I traded stocks, would that be a good business? If I did import-export business, would that be a good business? Like what businesses, and how do you decide what makes a business one that you can stand very tall and proud to be a part of? What kind of business is that? And then you let them tell you. And this is where you let them sing. And let them tell you, what is it that defines professionalism? And then when they're all done, you take each one of those, and then you just say, are there businesses in that category that are unprofessional? Are there people in that business that is unprofessional? All right, so if somebody says to me, trading stocks on Wall Street, and I say, okay, are there any stockbrokers? Are there any people who trade stocks? Do you really think Goldman Sachs has a good reputation out there? They are known for so many dreadful things. There are many, many schemes, scams. What about the gentleman who used to run NASDAQ? He's known for the biggest Ponzi scheme on planet Earth. Right? So I would then explain and expose that every profession has a part of it that has a bad reputation. And that a good business has to be a business that makes people's lives better. And a bad business would have to be a business that harms people. And so as long as you are in a company that makes people's lives better and you're working with people who's dedicated to serving men and women, who's dedicated to making people's lives better, then that's what you look for. It isn't a profession that is professional or not professional, right? Would you say that, like I look at hotels. There's nice hotels and there's bad hotels. Airlines, there's good airlines and bad airlines. Stockbrokers, bankers, everybody has good ones and bad ones. And so network marketing itself is not a good or bad. It's what each company or each person makes it. So that's the way that I overcome that objection, and I have overcome that objection with a lot of people. So I know that one really well.
All right, thank you very much.
Do you feel as though that I've helped you with that one? That you would now be able to ask that person to list
absolutely.
What is professional?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, good. Because if you just think about it, Jonathan, it is people who serve others. It cannot be a bad business, right? It cannot be unprofessional, because in the final analysis, the only thing that you could ever judge a good business by or a good profession by is whether or not that group serves mankind or not. You know, like some of you have heard this example before. You say, oh, well, what constitutes a professional business? Everybody who, everybody's a scientist. Oh, okay, and so what they do is they work in the nuclear business, and they create a bomb that destroys a whole sector of the planet. That's real professional. That's real good. You know, I mean, come on, that can't be. Well, they're doctors. So, okay, so they work for the Food and Drug Administration, so they allow a drug that kills 200,000 people through. Oh, that's real professional. Right? In other words, you have to look at the particular doing of any profession and say, is it helping mankind or harming it? And if it's helping, then it's a professional business. It's a good one. If it's hurting, then it's not good. Doesn't matter how big of a business that it is, right? You got a business, billions and billions of dollars go through Monsanto. But Monsanto puts chemicals onto the planet that, you know, that are probably one of the leading causes of birth defects in the world, right? So it's killing off birds, it's killing bees, it's killing all kinds of things. And so even if that group all wear suits, they all went to college, they all did all these incredible professional-looking things, but yet what they end up doing is harming, then it doesn't matter how much money, how big the company is, it's still harmful. So I hope that helps you in giving people and helping people to understand this, because sometimes it might be the college that they went to, the alumni, they feel that esprit de corps around something about that. It's an image issue, and the image can only be substantiated by whether or not you help people or not.
Hey,
all right,
Kim.
thanks very much.
This is Arlene.
You're welcome, Jonathan. Arlene.
I've heard a lot of, when you're doing purchase leads and things like this, or you're talking to a friend or something, the comment was reminded to me that I've heard so many times, and it goes along with what you just said, but I'd like you to comment on that also. They'll say, well, I just want a real job. So how do you come back with that?
Define what that means.
Well, when you're talking to them about your company and getting in and being part of our organization and wanting to look at some material or something, they say, no, I'm really not interested. I want a real job.
Yeah. Arlene, I got it as soon as you said it. What I was when I said, tell me what that looks like. What I meant by that is that is my reply when they say I want a real job.
Oh,
I say,
okay.
what that looks like, right? So I want you to play with me, Arlene.
Okay.
I want you to be this person. Okay, so try to be as close and accurate to a real person that you've talked to as you possibly can, right?
Okay.
And so you say I'm looking for a real job.
Yeah. Hey, I don't want one of those things. I want a real job.
Okay, and what does that mean? What's a real job?
Well, I want to go work for somebody that's going to pay me to be part of it. I don't want to be putting money out so that I'm not going to pay you so I can earn money. I want a real job that pays me.
Okay, I can understand that. Well, let me ask you something on that. When you go to work for someone, do you feel as though that they're paying you what you're worth?
Well, sometimes it depends on my job. I've had some jobs that I felt like that I was getting paid pretty good. And then there's other jobs that, I felt like maybe they're taking advantage of me.
Yeah, if you would just, for a moment, just put yourself in the spot of the business owner. And any business owner is typically going to hire you at wholesale and then sell your services at retail. Okay, so if you're a graphics designer, I'm going to hire you for $30 an hour, and then I'm going to sell your services out there to the public for $100 an hour. And so business ownership, typically that is always the way that it goes. And so what I'm suggesting that might be a better option is for you to be that business owner, right? And have you ever thought of it from that perspective, that, you know, you're going to go in there and you're going to, you know, give your resume to somebody, and they're going to place a value on you, a dollar value on you. Have you ever felt as though that you're bigger than that? That if you really sat down and said, "Hey, you know what? I can own my own business." Have you ever thought of owning it, owning your own business?
Well, you know, I think it crosses everybody's mind. They always think, well, you know, I'm worth more than this and that. But the reality is that probably it's the best you're going to get. Owning your own business, I don't know. I've thought about that, and I don't want to be the boss that hires everybody. I don't want to be taking care of everybody. I don't want to be paying the insurance and doing all that. So it's just, you know, I go to work, and after 8 hours I can walk away, and I've got, you know, I can go do what I need to do.
And how many years are you planning on doing that?
Well, you know, everybody would like to retire sooner or later, so I don't know. I guess I'd like to think by the time I was 65 or 70, I could have a retirement coming. Good.
And I'm not trying to get personal here, all right? And you don't have to give me any kind of a number. But I want to just ask you, how much money have you put away so far of that salary that you've been earning in a real job?
Well, right now, I'm not doing it because we've been reduced down in size, and so, you know, my pay's been cut back a little bit. So right now, we're just meeting the means, but I'm hoping that, you know, as the economy picks up, maybe that I'll get a raise here, and then I can start doing that again.
Well, I wish you luck with that, because if you look at the average 65-year-old, I think that they probably thought that all along, but it never changed. And I just, you know, you're welcome to do whatever you want on this. You know, I'm offering to train you, to walk you step by step through how to build your own business. You don't have to hire people. All you'll have to do is basically have conversations, expose the business to people. If they want to do the business, then you're going to train them how, and I'm going to walk you through step by step on how to do that. But it's your decision. You really do have to kind of, you know, think about this and decide whether or not you want to create something of your own or not. Because if you go to work for somebody, and then you're completely at their mercy. So if they want to downsize you, if they want to change locations and move that shipping warehouse or move that facility off to another country, then they terminate you immediately. You know, like, you're always at a security risk when you're dependent upon anyone other than yourself. So why don't you just, you know, do you want to take a little bit deeper look into this?
Well, yeah. You know, I've been worried about my retirement. You really hit the nail on the head there, because I'm 55, and my 401k is pretty well shrunk and gone, and that is a concern, because I know I'm not going to retire at that age. So I always felt like maybe I was a little too old to get started on something new, and that if I worked hard enough, I'd finally be able to say, yeah, it's time to quit. But you brought up some good points there, and yeah, I'd like to go on and look at this a little further.
Yeah, Arlene, the way that you go with this is it's kind of, sometimes it doesn't work on the call itself.
Yeah.
But what you do is that you kind of you be their friend. You impinge a little bit on them. Don't upset them, but you kind of sometimes have to wake them up a little bit by throwing out some of those things. You can laugh a little bit and kind of joke around, their 401ks become a 101k, and that, all the money that you put into Social Security is, well, it probably bought the dashboard of a C-130 aircraft or something somewhere down the road, because that's all going away. And, and you can throw out little things like that to kind of wake them up, because most of the time people went through the era of time where they, it was the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, where everything was about getting an education so that you could work for a big company. Before that, everyone was entrepreneurs. And after that, in other words, right now we are entering in a new time era where everyone is going to be entrepreneurs again, because you can just see the dismantling of large entities. They half of them have already split their organizations up, and they have taken them offshore. All right, the tax rate, and I'm not just talking about corporate tax rates. I'm talking about when you factor everything into business ownership. Today, in a large company, it makes 0 sense. Now, I'm as an American as they come, right? Fought, was a part of the military, very American. I'm also a person who studies economics, and I study and I look at it from the standpoint of business ownership, and at a time when it was very smart to own a business in America was in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, because we did not have the tax rates the way that we are. And it's not just tax rates. It's additional insurances and property tax on top of it, and all of the things that go into plans that have to be with each employee, medical, dental, those kinds of things. I was just meeting with someone yesterday, and this story was just incredible, because he worked for a large airline, and then the airline ended up going through bankruptcy and coming out on the other side of it, and they basically hacked away half of all the retirement. So the 401k got cut in half. And so where the whole years, the 20, 30 years that the person serves in these companies, they felt as though that they were building their retirement plans, but then a company goes into bankruptcy, shows the courts, hey, you know what, if we can't survive, we can't go forward if I don't cut some of these obligations down. And so paying people who worked for me in the past still today, in other words, why would I pay someone today who worked for me in the past? And that's their argument. And so everyone on this call, you've got to understand that we got sold a bunch of lies, but they were not intended to be lies at the time. It was a competitive advantage. And so IBM, people wanted to work for IBM because of the benefits. So yes, the pay is the same, but the benefits. And so what they thought in that time is that we can put off in the future. We can put these ideas in people's heads that they're going to have a retirement plan in the future. And you know what? We'll pay for their whole family's dental plan, and we'll pay for these things. And they thought that was going to be smart, but they didn't realize all the additional taxes that was going to come along for people doing business in America. And so now they can't afford it, because some of those other businesses are offshore. So that's what's changed about it all now, Arlene. So the security and the interest in working, getting a real job, that is an old idea. It's very antiquated, and it is. I think the future really is gone in that, and I believe that most of the companies, the big companies, not the majority of their businesses offshore to other countries, that they don't have to pay all these benefits to.
Good. Very good. I appreciate that, Tim. It clears up a lot of things that we're facing nowadays. Yes. Anybody else have a question? We'll go for, I don't know how long you can stay, Tim. You let us know.
Hi, this is Donna in California. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. What was your name again?
Donna.
Donna. Hi, Donna.
Yes. One of the objections that come up quite often is the money. I don't have the money because I have, every other commitment. But to spend that type of money or that kind of money, I just don't see myself doing that right now.
Okay. That's always a good one, and you got to know that this is going to come up all the time. I've never ever done.
Sorry, I said to stop.
Let's see. Would someone please mute their phone if they have your children? We can hear you yelling at your children, and it's just not appropriate. I don't want to embarrass you, but it's really hard for the rest of us, and we would like to keep the lines unmuted. So if you've got children in the room and you're talking to them, please mute your phone.
Okay. This objection is going to always be there. I've never experienced in good economy and bad economy that you don't have this objection. And so, number one, don't ever let this objection stall you. Okay? All right? So here's the way it works in many times, is that you're trying to build your business and you go to somebody and they pretend to have an interest, and they may very well truly have an interest, but what happens is that they say they don't have the money. And so it deflates you a little bit, and you feel as though, yeah, you know what, there's not enough people out there that have the money these days, or something like that. Don't ever let that happen to you, okay? Because just realize that you're one phone call away from recruiting me. You're one phone call away from recruiting Stefan or Arlene or Steve or any of these other people that you see being these giants. I answered an ad in the newspaper. Right? It was just driving home.
Conference muted.
Okay, Tim, go ahead and answer your question there.
Yeah, that did make it a little difficult.
Yes.
Okay, the point that I was trying to make, and I'll let this be the concluding question. The point that I was trying to make, I'll answer this. I'll handle this objection, but I first want to just get in everybody's mind just for 1 second, and let me tell you that sometimes when you're handling these objections, you get deflated. It reduces you down, and you feel as though that you can't do it or something. And you cannot have that attitude, all right? Winners just cannot have that attitude. And I know it well, and it's the reason that I bring it up right now. It's because when I was building my business, and I would go through some people, and they would give me this objection, and after a while, after 10 or 15 or 20, I'd begin to doubt. Had I let that doubt set in, then I wouldn't have made the millions and millions and millions of dollars. Every single one of these objections that I've talked to you about today, these all came about. The reason that I know how to handle these objections is because I dealt with them. And had I let any of them stall me, and there were some that did stall me, I had a very, very arrogant person on the phone one time, and he told me, he says, tell you what, son, I'll show you my W-2 form, which is the tax form that shows your income. I'll show you mine, and you show me yours, and if yours is more than mine, then I'll do your silly business. And he hung up the phone. And, man, for some reason, that just absolutely knocked me out at the knees, and I remember being out of commission for 3 days or so. And then with tears in my eyes, I remember waking up in the middle of the night. With tears in my eyes, I said, I will not let anybody's doubts, I will not let anybody's rude comments take me out of the game. Because it was my dream, not his. Right? And so don't let any of these things stifle you, because you are literally one phone call away. Okay? You're one phone call away. Because the gentleman who ran the ad that I answered, I don't know how many he had answered. I don't know how many people were rude to him. I don't know how many people had told him that they wanted a real job. I don't know how many had told them that they didn't have the money. But I didn't. I was low on income. I was low on money. I was in the military. I mean, come on. But I could figure out a way and to come up with the money. And what I did was that I sold a bunch of guns that I had, and to get enough money. So, all right. So how do you handle this objection? Is that you listen all the way through it. You know what? I'm just going to tell you exactly the way Rick, the guy who's brought me into this industry, how he handled this objection, because I gave it to him, and I have never found a better way to handle it. He said, he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I don't have that kind of money." What I was really saying to him, in all honesty, and I believe that most of the time this is what's going on, is what you have told me does not allow me to think that my money is best spent there. Okay? So, but what ended up happening with this scenario, because I didn't have the money, and I told him I didn't have the money, he said these words to me: "Tim, just listen to what you're saying. You do not have $250 to start your own business," because that's the exact amount that it was then. No, it was just shy of $300. He said, but I remember him saying $250 for whatever reason. He said, "You don't have $250 to start your own business." Like, when do you see that changing? And I remember thinking, what a rude statement and question that was. But for whatever reason, I listened to him, because he made a point. And it was a very, very valid point. Is that if I had so little money that I did not have $250 to put into my own business, then I should figure out how to do that. And so he did not close me that day. He closed me to come back up to his house to figure out how I could do it. He says, so he asked me, he says, "When do you see that changing, man?" Like, he goes, I don't mean any disrespect, but I want you to just think about the condition that you're in, and I'm offering you how you can change that condition. And so, why don't you come over to my house? And he lived about an hour, 15 hour and 20 minutes away from me. His name was Rick Mayo. I will always, forever, for the rest of my life, I will be indebted to that man, because he walked me through getting into this. And had he not been a real professional, I would not have been. I would not have been able to make that transition. And so I went to his house, and it was funny the way that he solved the problem for me. He said, "Tim, well, here's what I think you should do. I'm gonna let you come in for free." So he was testing me whether or not I was real, whether or not it was true that I wanted to be in. It was just money. He says, "I'm going to let you come in for free." And I remember feeling a relief. And he said, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to buy 5 of these kits at wholesale. And then you're going to sell all 5 of them. And the money that you're going to make as a profit is going to allow you to buy yours for free, because it will have cost you nothing. And then I remember looking at him, and I actually said these words. I pointed to my forehead, and I said, "Do I have stupid written on my forehead?" And he smiled, and he goes, "No." And I said, "Well, then, if I don't have the money for 1, I certainly don't have the money for 5. He says, "Do you have a credit card?" I said, "Yeah, but I'm not going to spend it on that." And he said, "Well, wait a minute now. You said that you didn't have the money, but I just showed you a way to come in for free. All you have to do, you get the 5 kits, and you sell them inside of a month, and it never costs you anything. And so the question is that if you don't feel as though that you could actually do it, then that's an entirely different thing. So do you feel as though that you could sell 5 kits? And then he had me. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was at that moment that I determined that the reason that so many objections come up is because of that I can't do it. Because if I believed that I could do it, then I would not hesitate. And so I don't know if he just put me on the spot or if he challenged my manhood or what he did at that moment, but I threw my credit card down. And because he told me there was a 100% money back guarantee, I could return them and all of that. And so I said, fine. And so I ended up selling 28 of those kits in a month. And so to handle the objection, you kind of have to get a person to, you got to really determine whether or not this objection is real or if it's can I do it. And most of the time, it's can I do it. All right? So I decided right then and there, and I went and I sold all my guns, I sold my golf clubs, I sold absolutely everything that was taking up my money, money that I had that I could get rid of because I didn't need golf clubs. I wasn't going to be doing any golfing anytime soon. That's 4 hours walking around chasing a white ball. Come on. And so I just completely devoted myself. I sold everything that I could. Not to pay for necessarily, but it was to get all those distractions out of my life, to get all my resources that I possibly could so that I could buy advertising, so that I could, buy training tools, to do everything that I could. And so when you get someone who likes to use the excuse, I don't have time, likes to use the excuse, I don't have money, and you determine it pretty quick, you do everything that you can to try to bring them across, right? And if you can't, you can't. Be nice, be professional with them. Do not ever invalidate them because they are just not there yet. They don't believe in themselves yet. Because if a person really believed in it, they'd go all out. Right? They'd do what I did. And so that's how I overcame that objection. Well, let me say it another way. That was the way Rick overcame my objection. And then that taught me so many valuable lessons that I would later be able to do the business because of the way that he did that. Incidentally, I'll tell you a really sad story. That gentleman who brought me into the business, I hadn't become Tim Sales yet. I worked. I didn't have a lot of results. I frustrated, banged my head against the wall a lot, did the wrong things a lot, and he quit. He ended up going to another company, and I didn't quit, but I wasn't who I am now. And so he missed out on millions and millions and millions of dollars, and he started selling pictures on mugs down in a mall, and I couldn't resist going down there and getting my picture put on a mug. So let that be a lesson to all of you that, go through the journey. You're in the right spot. Ariix is just an unbelievable company. How you got so lucky to be here, I don't know. You must have done a bunch of stuff right, or somebody who is your friend contacted you about this company. I couldn't imagine, ever being lucky enough to be in this spot that we've got with the owners of this company and the leadership that we've been able to attract. Stay on these calls. Every time that Arlene puts a call together, get on them, because you never know what that little tweak, what that little thing, because that girl has studied so much. She teaches me the stuff that I taught her. I forget it sometimes, and she brings me back to reality. And so she is just an incredible leader as well as Stefan. And so with that, Arlene, Stefan, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Well, there's just one thought I want to say before Stefan steps in here. It says, and I picked this up when I was looking for some Irish thoughts, and it says, you'll never plow a field by turning it over in your mind. So take it for what it's worth and apply to what you've learned today. So, Stefan, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
Well, just want to help people realize how lucky we are that we have Tim Sales as our master distributor. You can see the kind of training that he's put together, and really we're on the quest to change an industry and help all of us become more professional at doing this business. So thank you, Tim, for joining us this morning. It's really, really appreciated, and I look forward to many more of these conferences and events we're going to share together.